Wake Up Carolina on the iCarter Talk Network.
Speaking of Congressman Rice, I think we have connected with Congressman Tom Rice. Are you there, Congressman?
I'm here, Ken.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm well.
Okay, before I have any questions, I got a couple of things I want to ask you. But I mean, obviously, you know the situation of which you're in, not politically, but as it relates to Tom. And I want to say this, and I've tried to express this on the show over and over again. I wish you were a son of a gun because it'd be easy to pile on you. But I know how decent, I know how respected, I know how honest, competent, and straightforward you are. And I've always had a lot of respect for you as a human being and as my congressman. And I tried to express in a Facebook post that you were chairman of Horry County Council when I was lieutenant governor. And every dealing I ever had with you was above board. It was genuine. It was helpful. You were always gracious. But you did something that caught the district off guard. So explain yourself if you don't mind.
All right, my friend, I don't mind one single bit. Hey, leading into that, the last vote we took, the vote the day of the attack, was the vote on whether or not to certify the Electoral College. And I struggled with that a lot. And the reason primarily that I struggled, I worked on that. I tried to learn about what our role was, and I tried to understand what would indicate to us we should intervene. And, you know, under the Constitution, the state legislatures are the ones who have the power to set the election laws. In all 5 of the states in question, people other than the legislature did something to change the laws in the weeks leading into the election. And whether or not you could prove any fraud, that infringed on that legislative prerogative under the Constitution. And that's what I was trying to hang my hat on. My problem was, I wanted to help President Trump. In the South Carolina delegation, I have voted more with President Trump than any other member. Out of 9 members, Tom Rice is number 1. I voted with him 94% of the time. So I wanted to be with him on that, but I was struggling. I mean, overturn an election is a big, big deal. So what finally tipped me over the edge was Pennsylvania, the state Senate. The president of the state Senate in Pennsylvania wrote a letter the night before we voted on it, and he outlined 3 or 4 things that had been done different than the law in Pennsylvania. He didn't outline any fraud. He just said they extended the election date by 3 days, and they lessened some of the signature requirements and those types of things. And I had seen some numbers that wasn't enough to change the election, but that's what I hung my hat on. The problem was, out of those 5 states, 4 of them have Republican state legislatures. 1 of them has a Republican House and a Democrat Senate. But none of those legislative bodies had complained about the election, not one to Congress. None of them submitted an alternate electoral college vote. I was struggling with that vote. But when finally Pennsylvania, the president of the Senate and about 20 senators, not the Senate itself, but the president of the Senate, about 20 senators, wrote a letter outlining the problems, I said, I can hang my hat on that. So I put my name on those objections reluctantly. I was on the floor ready to argue that debate when the attack happened. And, obviously everybody was shell-shocked. When you're sitting on the floor there and a group of folks is banging on the last door between you and the Capitol and breaking glass, and you don't know what weapons they have. I mean, we knew they had pipe bombs and tear gas. We didn't know about the hand restraints and the stun guns and all that other stuff. And we'd heard that they'd been, in fights with the Capitol Police officers. It's certainly a startling thing. And they led us out the back door and across the street through the tunnels to one of the office buildings there. And we're sitting there for 2 or 3 hours. And I'm watching what's happening on TV. I'm watching the group yelling, hang Mike Pence, and I'm watching the group ransack the Capitol, and I'm watching the Capitol Police get the crap beat out of them. And every time I hear somebody walk down the hall, I'm wondering if that's those guys. We're in the office, the door's closed, but we don't have any weapons of any kind. The fellow's office I was in, he had a baseball bat in the corner, and I'm thinking I'm going to be grabbing that baseball bat if anybody comes to the door. I don't know if they have guns or what they have. And I'm talking to the news media back home. They're all calling me on my cell phone, and I'm saying, "Where's the president? Where's the president?" Well, when I left here that day, I went ahead with my protest. I shouldn't have done it. I should have taken my name off those protests right then. But I didn't. I went ahead with the protest, and I voted yes on what the president wanted me to vote yes on. And I went back home, and I said, I want to learn what the president was doing, why he didn't help us, why he didn't respond. And the more I looked at that, the madder I got. And basically what happened was, the president, after he gave his speech and said he was going down to the White House with the protesters, going down to the Capitol with the protesters, went back to the White House, and he sat in front of a TV with Secret Service around him, and he sent out 5 tweets. And the first one was after the Capitol had been breached and the Capitol Police had been attacked and beaten and bloodied. The first one was, Mike Pence doesn't have the courage to do what needs to be done. Now, Mike Pence was in that Capitol, and it wasn't just him. It was his wife and his children that were with him when that fight was going on. And these people came within less than a minute at about 50 yards from where Mike Pence was. Now, I'll tell you this. If I were Mike Pence, if Mike Pence were from Horry County or from Florence County or Marion or Dillon, the president would need to looking over his shoulder right now. If the president's inciting those people to find Mike Pence, they're outside yelling, hang Mike Pence, and he's in there with his wife and his children. Well, that place is under attack, and the president's inciting that. And I'm sorry, folks. That is something I absolutely can't stomach. And then for 2 hours, over the next 4 hours, he sent out 3 or 4 more tweets. First one was about 2 hours later. We love our Capitol Police. Don't beat up the Capitol Police or something like that. And then the next one was, we love you and you're special people, and don't ever forget this day, and don't be violent. That was 2 hours, 3 hours into it. And then the fourth one was, then he sent out a little video about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We love the same kind of thing. And then the last one was really bugs me. He said, it was that night, he said, this is what happens when an election gets stolen, something along those lines, like to Congress, don't screw with me or I'm going to send people over there to beat you up. Now, we're up there voting on something he wants us to do, and I'm trying to carry his water for him reluctantly. And I've been with him 94% of the time. And he sends a group of people to Congress. The executive branch sends a group of people to the legislative branch to bully and intimidate them into voting the way that he wants. And that is a direct attack on our Constitution, our democracy, and our form of government. And second, that's the legislative underpinning to this in my mind. The second underpinning to that is personal. When people who have been loyal to him for 4 years are disposable, not just in terms of their jobs, but disposable to them physically, their well-being and their lives are disposable to him to advance whatever his ego-driven agenda is, that is totally unacceptable. Those are the tactics of dictators and despots. And so, my friends, here's what I ask you. What kind of congressman do you want? Do you want somebody who is going to buckle under to a bully and say, oh, gosh, I'm so afraid of Donald Trump that what he's going to do to me in my next election, I'll just do whatever he says, whether it's right or wrong? Do you want somebody who's going to buckle under a bully and say, oh, I'm so afraid they might send somebody over here to beat me up that I'm going to do whatever they say? Because if that's what you want, I'm not your guy, okay? I am not your guy. I'm going to try to do what's right. And I think most everybody in South Carolina, we're a mix of everybody from this great country. A lot of us are like me, are Scotch-Irish, and they don't like bullies and they don't like being pushed around. So, you know what, when I look at what the president did, when he sat there for hours, he never held a press conference. He never got in front of the cameras and said, y'all got to stop this. He sent out an occasional tweet with weak statements about, oh, well, don't be violent. He never did any of that. He never got sent an emissary down there. He never tried to broadcast to the crowd. He never put speakers out there. He never got off his rear end and went down to the Capitol like he said he was going to do, he didn't do anything to stop it. No, he did the bare minimum he could do to make some kind of statement that he did anything to try to help us. And there were senators and congressmen and other people trying to call him, people who had been his friends for 4 years, and he wouldn't even take their calls. So no, when I looked at that, the more I looked at it, the madder I got, and it was very clear to me that there was only one vote I could take. And as to the due process issue, keep in mind that the House is not the trier of fact. The House only has to establish a case. And I didn't want them to bring that impeachment. That part of it was political. Nancy Pelosi wanted to make a point. And I didn't want her to bring it. I wanted to let him run the 8 days out and let him leave and walk out in the sunset. But when you put that in front of me and I got to vote yes or no, there's only one vote I can take. And, buddy, don't you fool me once about your loyalty to me, you aren't going to fool me again. So it was very clear to me what I had to do. All we have to do is establish, a case. We don't make the case. And I saw all the case I needed while I was sitting on the floor that day.
Congressman, let me ask you this. I don't put words in your mouth, but is your argument or is your vote based upon him not stopping the violence? Do you think his speech incited the violence? I accused him of peddling fantasy. And I think when you peddle fantasy, there could potentially be consequences. But a lot of your conversation to me and our listeners has been about the events after they got to the Capitol and his non-reaction. Is that a fair characterization, or am I putting words in your mouth?
Well, absolutely. In the first place, personally, I do believe he incited the crowd, but I don't even care about that, honestly. I don't have to make that point. And then the second point, there's some Antifa people there. Well, as it's borne out, there's been very few of the people that were arrested that were in any way involved with Antifa. But I don't really care about that because, A, the president knew he was whipping that crowd up. Whether you call it the legal definition of incitement or not, I don't care. He knew there was a potential for violence. Any idiot would know there was a great potential for violence, and he did nothing to stop it. Second, Antifa, I fully anticipated Antifa would be there. I think anybody with a rational would anticipate they were there. I was so afraid of that 2 days before, I told my staff, A, don't come to work that day, and B, go to the cash machine because I think there's going to be riots all over the city. I didn't think they'd ever get to the Capitol. I thought there'd be riots all over the city between the two crowds, and they'd be burning buildings down. I thought it might bring our financial system down. I said, y'all go to the ATM and get some cash. I mean, I knew Antifa was going to be there. I knew that President Trump supporters were going to be there. I thought there'd be 100,000 or 50,000 people downtown in riots. I was wrong. But any rational person would anticipate with the language that he used that there would be the potential for violence and that counter-protesters could be there. I don't care about either one of those things. I mean, they're factors, but they're not determinative to me. The main thing is once that violence started, once they were in the Capitol, once Mike Pence was hiding out with his wife and his children, once we were in lockdown and the protesters were beating on the door and breaking the glass trying to get into our chambers, and they were telling us to take out our emergency kits and put our tear gas hoods on because the protesters were deploying gas throughout the place. Once all that happened and the president saw it on TV, he took no steps to stop it. And that is completely untenable, lack of leadership. That does not deserve my support, and it doesn't deserve your support. That's something like Maduro would do, or Kim Jong-un, or Idi Amin. And I have backed this president. I'm a tax lawyer and a CPA. I helped write his tax reform plan. I helped with his regulatory cut plan. I'm on the Trade Subcommittee on Ways and Means. I helped negotiate the USMCA, and I backed him on China throughout. I've taken hard votes for him. I've taken easy votes for him. Nobody in South Carolina has been more loyal to him than I have. And I was on the floor to argue something I was very uncomfortable about, that electoral college vote that night, and he turned the wolves on me. And, buddy, that doesn't deserve my support or your support.
Last question. Got about a minute and a half, and once again, appreciate your time. A lot of your voters believe that was a betrayal. You voted with Pelosi and Clyburn. You've expressed yourself. You've articulated the argument you stand behind, and you know, I understand that. I certainly understand that. But there's still a political reality, and that is a group of people who were trying to run the president out of town the day he got there. You voted with those people. Talk to your voters about that political issue.
You know, I went into that eyes wide open. Again, my friends, you know, you're free to judge me as you wish. Don't judge me. My argument would be, don't just judge me on that one vote. Look what I've done for the last 4 years. I have been his biggest supporter in South Carolina. I knew going into this that some people would be upset with me. But it was extremely clear what I had to do, and I'm willing to take the consequences. I mean, I've had, I don't know, I bet I've had 500 texts and calls and emails, maybe more than that. And of the ones that I've gotten, you know, most of those people know me, and probably 80% have been supportive. Probably 25% are very happy, and 20% are furious. Most of the calls to the office have obviously been furious. The few that I've gotten to the campaign side have been, you know, a mix of supportive and furious. So, I mean, I completely understand. I supported him just as much as you did, maybe more. And I helped craft his policies, and his policies were working, and it provided opportunity for people. His agenda was my agenda. That's why I supported him. I didn't support him because it was Donald Trump. He wanted the same things I wanted. He wanted to lift up people across the spectrum. Ken, you've heard me talking about that. Jobs, jobs, jobs. From the time I got to Congress in 2012, before I ever knew Donald Trump was ever going to run, until today. And it's still my agenda. And that was his agenda, and that's why I helped him. But in the end, when in his quest to win at any cost, the cost became too high. When the cost became undermine our democracy, when the cost became put on the line the lives of the people who supported you, that cost is too high for me.
And Congressman, I respect you. You know I do. I think a lot of you, you're always welcome here to express yourself. We got to pay some bills. I wish I could keep you longer, but we got hard breaks. Thank you for your time, and I'm sure we'll see you down the road.
Ken, if you want, next week I'll come on and I'll take listener questions.
Yes, sir. We'll do. Absolutely. We'll get in touch with you. I'll text you when I get off the air today. Thank you, Congressman.
All right. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Wake Up Carolina on the iCarrier Talk Network.